For this week's double hidden video, I needed to confide in my most nature-loving AC family. Though this week's episode ended on a high note, I'm afraid, guys, what's coming up is not good. I'll explain everything next week. I actually don't know if things will be okay, but I'll do my best to find solutions to our problems. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Welcome to the AC family. Enjoy. Something terrible has happened. Some major events have taken place since last week within the Selva de Fuego, our newly constructed South American biotope paludarium, home to our fire ants, named the Fire Nation, as well as to a variety of aquatic creatures living in this river. AC family, I hate to announce that life within our river is dying. Let me explain how it got to this point. Let's rewind to last week's episode where we left off. Pleasantly surprised to discover Romeo and Juliet, our beloved pair of golden ram cichlids, were spawning. This event filled me with immense hope for life in our river, because this species generally will not breed unless water conditions are optimal. And to think, the fish had only been living in the Selva de Fuego's river for a few days. We were about to witness the miracle of life take place before our very eyes. And what I was particularly looking forward to was watching Romeo and Juliet raise their fry, i.e., the technical term for fish babies, together as first-time mom and dad. AC family, I was excited to show you guys a super cool behavior called mouth brooding, unique to cichlids, where the parents suck the fry into their mouths to transport and/or protect the babies. But just when we thought Mother Nature was about to show us something beautiful, she took us down a very different and grim road. And things didn't turn out as expected. In fact, things took a turn for the worst. The morning after, I came to this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guppies. Where were the other 2 guppies? Looking around, I was shocked and horrified to discover one guppy in the process of dying and another struggling to take its final swim. When they officially died, I pulled them out of the water to place their lifeless bodies onto Fire Nation territory for the ants to consume and process into nourishment for Selva de Fuego soils. The guppy gang was now down to just 8. But that's not it. Joining our death count was one of our 4 Corridoras catfish, also now returning to the earth by way of the Fire Nation. But AC family, here was the saddest part. I looked to the site of Romeo and Juliet spawning from the night before. A ton of little tiny cichlid eggs lay embedded on the spawning rock, and hovering over it was Juliet. But no Romeo. AC family, Romeo had also perished overnight, seen floating on the water's surface. I handed his body over to be transitioned to the soil by the Fire Nation. Juliet seemed distressed, swimming around looking for Romeo, who was nowhere to be found. I could only imagine what she could be thinking right now, wondering in desperation where the father of their upcoming fry could have possibly disappeared to. The sight was immensely heartbreaking and difficult to watch. AC family, I am so sorry. I have no idea what happened. What could have possibly caused the fish to die like this, when just the night before it seemed the water was perfect? How did this lead to the river eventually looking like this? Well, let me explain what happened next. First things first, I needed to transport Juliet and her eggs to a separate aquarium so they could be safe from the guppy gang, who might attempt to eat the eggs, and the cichlid fry if they do successfully hatch, and also safe from whatever might be killing the fish in the river. I carefully picked up the spawning rock, placed it into a container, and moved it towards Juliet. Her instinctive parental drive to protect her eggs superseded her natural fear, and she moved into the container, which I then proceeded to cover for safe transport to a separate cycle tank of mine. In the new tank, she unwaveringly stood by her eggs, never leaving them, not even once. Looking at Juliet now, I could see she was totally saddened, confused, and visibly nervous without Romeo around to be with her through this stage of her very first parenthood. And now to get to the bottom of what was killing the fish in our river. There were a few possibilities I could think of. The first, ammonia spike. You may recall from a previous video that in order for a captive aquatic system to work, there needed to be teams of beneficial bacteria in the system to convert toxic ammonia from waste produced by the fish into nitrites, which is also toxic, and then further into nitrates, which is not so toxic and can be removed by partial water changes. The river was a couple days due for a water change before this all happened. So perhaps it was possible that the Selva de Fuego's filter still didn't have enough beneficial bacteria to neutralize the amount of toxic ammonia produced by the fish. And so this ammonia spike went on to kill the 4 river inhabitants overnight. This would have been the first thought of any fish keeper. Though this also didn't make sense to me because Romeo and Juliet wouldn't have spawned the night before if the water quality wasn't good. Regardless, it was time to get some answers. We had to analyze the chemistry of our river water to find out if our fish were being poisoned by their own waste. Using my aquarium water quality test kit, I checked the ammonia levels. According to the chart, ammonia was somewhere between 0 and 0.25 ppm, which was low. It seems ammonia levels were not our fish killer. I then proceeded to check nitrite levels. Zero ppm. Then nitrate levels. Also 0. Then pH levels. Neutral. So oddly, our water quality test didn't show anything alarming on a chemical level. But then, later that day, another guppy gang member died. What was going on here? If it wasn't poor water quality that was killing the fish, what could it be? What were other possibilities for our fish fatalities? The previous night saw spiders in the Selva de Fuego. Could the fish have been sustaining injuries from spider bites? No, that is highly unlikely, since orb weaver spiders generally stay clear of water. But then I looked to the Fire Nation, who seemed to be throwing one of their massive water raves. I've noticed that the Fire Nation would sporadically throw huge parties, mass gatherings on the surface of the water for no apparent reason at all, using the aquatic frog bit to support them. Could the Fire Nation have stung fish to death? Even our Corydorus catfish come up to the surface for air periodically. I suppose this was a possibility, but also a bit unlikely that it happened all on one night. It did also hurt to know that our beloved Fire Nation might have been our fish killers in this river murder mystery, but I didn't want to point our finger until we had more facts. What do you guys think? How do you believe the fish died? Let me know in this iPoll here and in the comment section. Advice from you aquarium fish experts would be greatly appreciated as well. And now, for how the river became blood red. Over the next couple of days, I mulled over this fish murder mystery in my mind. I also closely monitored the progress of Juliet and her eggs in their incubation tank. In just 2 days, each egg was showing the appearance of a black stripe, which would soon become the tiny spines and nervous system of the fry. What a miracle to know that these eggs were indeed successfully fertilized and destined to hatch. Juliet stood over them the whole time, ensuring their proper hygiene and safety. It was assuring to see Juliet looking stronger now and a bit more composed, as if she had accepted that Romeo was no longer going to return, and that she was going to have to take care of the fry on her own as a single parent. But I didn't want to just let the deaths of our fish go in vain. I couldn't just do nothing and leave room for another mass death event to happen again. The health of the river also affected the health of our ants, because as you know, water ecosystems and land ecosystems are closely tied. And the Selva de Fuego is no exception. The Fire Nation drinks from this river. We couldn't afford to have it become a death pool. I did notice new algae was beginning to appear in the river, which was completely normal, and in fact a good thing for the water system, as the algae helps consume toxic nitrates produced by the fish's waste. This gave me an idea. I needed to be more serious about the health of our river by amping up its cleaning team. So EC family, my idea. First, I needed to upgrade the river's mechanical filter. Right now the filter was a small submersible filter which was enough to keep a good volume of water moving through our teams of cleaning beneficial bacteria living within its filter media. But I felt, you know what? We're the AC family. We could go bigger and higher tech. And so, behold, our bigger and higher tech machine to deal with our river's filtering needs. This huge bad boy was a Sharuba canister filter, which I have found great success with for my other 75-gallon established fish tank. The river within the Selva de Fuego was only 20 gallons, so this filter would be more than enough to keep our river free of toxic ammonia and nitrites. To prepare this new huge filter, it needed its jumpstart colony of beneficial bacteria. I took some filter medium from the filter of my established fish tank, which was packed with colonies of beneficial bacteria, and transplanted it into the new filter. It was now ready to start its great work for our Selva de Fuego river waters. I also modified the input and output tubes of the filter for proper installation within the Selva de Fuego. But now for the big problem: installing it. This was an external filter, which meant the only way the input and output tubes could be situated into the setup was through this hole here. But I knew that the moment I removed all that white blockage, fire ants would come pouring out, and it did look like a lot of fire ants were presently congregating in that area. So I needed a diversion of some sort. My solution? A couple cockroaches on sticks, strategically placed away from the area, but at a distance close enough to the hole so that those hanging out at the hole would be called to the site. If less of a Fire Nation crowd were at the hole, it would then give me the perfect opportunity to remove the old filter and install the input and output tubes of the new filtration system. I also prepared a modified balloon to act as a barrier to block the entire hole so I could buy more time to properly stuff the space with the white blockage. In a few short minutes, the time had come. The roaches had worked at drawing Fire Nation ants away from the hole. I took a deep breath. I knew it was inevitable. I was going to be stung in this process. But this task absolutely had to be done. So EC family, here goes nothing. 1, 2, 3. I went in and removed the white blockage. With the help of a friend, I removed the old filter's plug, then installed the new filter's input and output tubes. Then proceeded to fasten the balloon. Success! And with minimal escapees. What a relief! As expected, I got stung many times, but thankfully, we didn't have a ton of escaped ants, which was my greatest fear. I turned the new filter on, and instantly, the new currents spewed out some of its biofilm, colonies of beneficial bacteria, into our river. The fish loved this new stream of water. The new filter offered a greater current which spun floating river ants around and around, but more importantly, would pass a greater volume of water through a greater team of beneficial bacteria, ensuring all toxic ammonia and nitrite levels were low. This extra powerful ammonia nitrite neutralizer would also come in handy if and when the Fire Nation decides to turn this river into a sewage system. and start dumping their garbage into the water. Speaking of which, wait, now I know what you may be thinking. AntsCanada, get to the point. How did the river become blood red? Don't worry guys, I'm getting to that here. Adding a powerful filter was not enough. There had to be more cleaning agents to help support our filter. I needed to go the extra mile by adding an additional team of aquatic plants. You see, aquatic plants also absorb poisonous ammonia and nitrites, as well as nitrates. This means that with more plants in the system, it would take longer for the fish to be poisoned from their own feces or from the decay of ant garbage in the water. Currently, the only plants in the Selva de Fuego's river were the frogbit and some moss. I knew we could do better than that. So again, I went to my established tank to harvest some of the most hardy plants I've ever grown underwater, a marvelous and vivacious plant called Sagittaria. Here you see it completely carpeting the bottom of my community planted fish tank. I started off with a few Sagittaria plants in this tank, and in just 7 months, it completely spread across the entire floor. This was perfect to introduce into the Selva de Fuego because it was easy growing and also native to South America, meaning it still fits species-wise into our South American biotope theme of the Selva de Fuego. And so, I went in to collect them. Three days later, this is what the Selva de Fuego River looked like. It was just gorgeous, with the newly planted Sagittaria. But you may notice a few changes to the setup. In order to properly grow these plants, we needed some extra growing medium to sustain them. So above the gravel layer, I had to add some soil, which contains all the necessary nutrients needed for the plants to root. Also, I added some extra CO2 support, carbon dioxide diffused into the water to help give these new plants a vitalizing boost. And the final touch? Upon further research, true South American biotopes are supposed to have sandy floors, not so much pebbly floors. Also, many of you fish enthusiast AC family expressed concern that the pebbly floor could negatively impact our Corridoras barbells, the little fleshy mustaches on the sides of their mouths. So in light of this, I decided to add on top of the soil layer, this layer of sand. Red sand. Sand that took a couple days to settle when I added it. And that, AC family, is the reason the river became blood red for 2 whole days. It looked scary to see the river like this, but I saw it as a sort of passing through fire of sorts. I knew that once all of this red dust had settled, our river would be a completely transformed biospace. And I was right. Viewing our river's metamorphosis was awe-inspiring. It was much more natural now, healthier, more stable, and best of all, much more prepared now to deal with lethal agents like ammonia, nitrite, or nitrate spikes. To add to the toxin-eating team of plant life, I also added some floating duckweed to join the frogbit at the surface of the water. Now AC family, are you ready for this? If you thought this transformation was incredible, check out what our river looked like almost 2 weeks later. Behold, the new river of the Selva de Fuego. The waters were crystal clear now, our fish loving their new lush aquatic territories. And boy, have our team of aquatic plants flourished beyond belief. The Sagittaria were now properly rooted into the soils and have begun to send out runners to start new baby Sagittaria plants. And look at that huge water floor of duckweed. They truly flourished. All those duckweed roots are absorbing harmful ammonia and waste in the river, which was awesome. Our frogbit was also proliferating now more than ever. This new team of plants also helped keep algae levels low because it limited the amount of light entering the water's depths, and also would outcompete algae for nitrates and nutrients in the water. As for Juliet and the eggs, the fish eggs were now wiggling with eager fry about to emerge. But I was sad to discover that, as if destined to live up to her name, the day before the eggs were about to hatch, Juliet had mysteriously passed on to join Romeo at the end of the Rainbow Bridge. I have absolutely no idea how she died. But this sudden death told me that the Fire Nation was not our fish killer. I continued to do more research on dying ram cichlids, and I discovered that newly acquired ram cichlids dying suddenly, with no immediate external signs of illness, is actually quite common in the fish pet trade, particularly for the exotic color phases. I was shocked to learn that it is a common practice for fish breeders to inject the fish with hormones to stimulate them to display their colors much more quickly. It was reported that this is very common with bulk fish breeders in Asia. The injected hormones often leads to a whole slew of health side effects, eventually leading to death. To this day, I don't know what killed my 6 fish, but I tried my best to adjust my South American habitat world to ensure the deaths don't happen again. The Selva de Fuego is a bittersweet story of life and death. Romeo and Juliet's eggs eventually went on to hatch into wiggling little tadpole-like babies. A few days later, they became free swimming, feeding on microscopic newly hatched brine shrimp. I knew they were looking for their parents, but for now, I had to play the role and give them the head start they needed before handing them over to a more experienced fish keeper to raise to adulthood. It was just adorable to see the fish sleeping together in clumps, which I assumed they would have done in their parents' mouths. Let's hope these fish go on to live long and fruitful lives in the aquariums of their future owners. They are first-generation aquatic Selva de Fuegans. Overall, this water system will continue to evolve and grow more and more stable. With the new plants and filter to handle the bioload, I went ahead and added one more Corridoras catfish. In the coming days, I look forward to adding a couple more Corridoras catfish to complete their cleaner team to 6, as these fish are naturally found in shoals of hundreds in the wild. What I absolutely love is how the Corridoras kick up a cloud of debris as they sift through the sands for food. And it seems the guppy gang have learned to follow the catfish so they could eat some of the edible bits from the debris cloud. This debris cloud also carries little tiny nutrient particles to the roots of the floating plants, thereby nourishing them. What an amazing species interdependence! Our Selva de Fuegans truly rely on each other. I may also add some autosynclus catfish to feed on the algae growing on the Sagittaria, but all in time, when I know the system is much more stable. I also need to mention that I swapped the assassin snail with an apple snail, because I learned later that assassin snails were native to Southeast Asia, not South America. Minor change. I was also delighted to learn that the guppy gang were not pandas like I was told they were. They were actually called fire dragon mosaics. How cool is that? An even better and more fitting name for the Selva de Fuego. I loved watching the guppy gang for hours as they wandered the thick Sagittarian forest in search of food. I suddenly caught sight of the Fire Nation forming trails on the floor of duckweed. How cool! It seems the Fire Nation were appreciating the new walking area, even if it was kind of a wet one. You would think this new wet floor would lead to more ant water raves, but surprisingly, quite the opposite. There were no more huge gatherings of ants on the water. Perhaps the ants just needed a safer bridge for traveling on top of the water, and prior to this duckweed floor, they needed to use their bodies? Who knows? As for my old tank, it seems after removing a large portion of the Sagittaria carpet and swapping out some filter media, literally out of nowhere, my Amazon sword plants must have loved the new abundance of plant resources and decided to flower. Wow! Even my Anubias found the opportunity to send out a flower bud. This entire experience taught me an important life lesson as an ant keeper, as a fish keeper, as a caregiver of life. As much as I put a lot of time, thought, and work into recreating nature, as was the goal with the Selva de Fuego, I realized you can't recreate the wild and only take the beautiful. You must also be willing to take the ugly, because both are inseparable in nature. When recreating the natural world, we must be prepared to accept all its rules, and this includes its rules of death. I don't view the death of pets as a good thing per se, but whether it be ant keeping, fish keeping, or any animal keeping for that matter, the death of a pet can help teach us how to better care for future pets. The death of our fish pushed me to improve the health of the Selva de Fuego and the quality of life for all its inhabitants. Had I not made those changes, perhaps we would have one day suddenly lost all fish, and God forbid, the Fire Nation, through water poisoning. The death of Romeo and Juliet, though tragic, helped me learn about the common practice of hormone injection. So now I, as well as all of you AC family watching, now know to only buy from reputable fish breeders. There are positive sides to death, even though we humans may not be able to appreciate the whole picture enough to see it. But nature can show us, through death, that her rules are non-negotiable, what we may be doing wrong, and why we must work within her parameters, lest we see our plans for the future falter. People often are surprised at how much I know about ants, and to be truthful, a lot of my knowledge came from simple trial and error, experimentation, which even involved losing ants along the way at times. The lives of these ants who passed on were not in vain though. It helped me learn to be a better ant keeper. Now, all of this biological engineering of vivariums over the past few months has been quite the undertaking, wouldn't you say, AC family? From water beasts to sky beasts, and having to manage all these different variables. Though ambitious, it has all been an exhausting venture. So, AC family, I felt it was time to revert back for a bit to some classic ant keeping. Just ants and a setup. And it just so happens that one of my most cherished ant colonies has been due for a very long time now for a new ant farm upgrade. It's been a while since we heard about the Dark Knights, my black crazy ants currently living in their 2-story ant setup, but that ends now. I had the perfect home waiting for them to move in. It was time for some innovative ant housing technology. I can't wait to show you. Alright AC family, are you excited to see the Dark Knight's new setup? I am super stoked to show you and finally bring back the Dark Knights to the channel. So hit that subscribe button and bell icon now so you don't miss out on next week's super cool ant video. And also don't forget to hit the like button every single time, including now. Also, if you're new to the channel and want to catch up on your AntsCanada lore, I've put together a complete storyline playlist so you can watch how all the ant colonies you love on this channel came to be, all their challenges and hardships, all their successes and life events. Their entire storylines can now be watched from the very start so you can better appreciate the journey these ants, as well as us watching them, have been embarking on. It's incredible how epic the lives of ants are. AC Inner Colony, I have left a hidden cookie for you here if you would just like to watch scenes of Romeo and Juliet's babies growing up. Grab some tissues if you do watch. It's heartwarming and tugs at the heartstrings. Before we get to the AC question of the week, I'd like to plug my daily vlogging channel. Daily vlogs of my travels around the world. The vlogs are currently covering my exploration of Sri Lanka, and the ants and wildlife are just insane. Do check it out and subscribe. And now it's time for the AC question of the week. Last week we asked, name 3 things spiders use their silk webbing for. Congratulations to Samuel Irvine, who correctly answered 3 things spiders can do with their webs: prey immobilization, guidelining, and ballooning. Congratulations Samuel, you just won a free ebook handbook from our shop. In this week's AC question of the week, we ask, name 1 change we had to make to our river to make it healthier and better equipped at dealing with the toxic agents in the water. Leave your answer in the comment section and you could also win a free ebook handbook from our shop. Hope you can subscribe to the channel as we upload every Saturday at 8 AM Eastern Standard Time. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video to help us keep making more. It's Ant Love forever.